I don't see anybody waiting here. I'm now in, like, apparently in another meeting, based on what you told me. And there's still only one person here. Admit, okay, you're here.
Okay.
I'm glad you're here because I would not have known that this was going on. I went into my web app, you know, the zoom.us. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can, sorry, you have to let me in.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. And ask to unmute.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, thank you. All right. Thank you so much for letting me know. This is wonderful. It's great. One of the teachers let me know that the students might not.
Yeah, we have to speak louder. Probably was me.
Also me. I listened to the recording. I was listening to the recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I tried to ask Marthany if she could join.
So we have a student already.
Oh, good. And excellent. Thank you very much for joining this session. When will you be unavailable, or was
At noon? At noon.
At noon. Okay, great. Cool. Did you have fun the first session? I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed. Excellent. Very good. Me too. Ask to unmute. I clicked on it, but it's not doing anything. Oh boy.
Excuse me, the noise. They're putting solar panels in my house.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
So I'm sorry. We will have a little bit of noise.
No, that's not it. I just thought it sounded more like a different.
It's a drill.
It's a drill. I see. Okay, yeah.
I forgot. At what time does this class start?
45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're cool. Okay, great.
So if you want, we can come back at 9:45.
I'm gonna hang out here because I don't trust this.
Okay.
I don't want to make any problems for anybody, and I want to make sure that I have the presentation lined up the way it's supposed to be. There we go. I'm gonna view full screen mode, and I'm going to, no, that's not helpful. Go back to here, and I'm going to share screen, right? Should I share screen now? Okay, great. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And you then do it in full.
Excellent.
Perfect.
All right. Yes, I've invited Marthany. I'm going to try to call her again and ask her if she can join us, because she might be available right now. Oh, she might join. Wonderful. Okay, I sent her an email with all the links included, so that should be helpful. Can you hear me well now, or is it better with the headset? Is it better with the headset, Paula?
Sorry, can you speak? It sound the same to me. I'm sorry about the noise.
Oh, no, it's cool. I just wondered if this headset is helping because my voice is pretty weak. Is the volume okay with my voice?
Can you speak just the title of the presentation?
Louder during the presentation. Okay, great. I'll do that. Thank you.
You can speak the title of the presentation to hear you as a test.
I see. Health and medical device literacy for everyone. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds better when you speak to the microphone. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
And what about me? I have to speak louder. I mean, the microphone is in the camera, which is in front of me, kind of far. And with the noise of the background, I'm sorry.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Perfect. Thank you very much for the feedback about our voices.
Yeah,
I
no
was
problem.
listening to the recording and I am now much more aware of my habits of speaking quietly.
No, it was like I thought maybe we weren't close enough to the microphone because I think his name was Tom.
Yes.
He was clear.
Yes.
It was
There's
just like
also a phenomenon of our gender. Because it is truly, last year our subject was on hearing loss. And so we spent a good deal of time looking at fundamentals, which is the sound, the resonant frequency of your voice can be in lower frequencies, lower registers, And so then when you have the harmonics and the overtones that are in different frequency ranges, as we age, we lose the ability to hear in those frequency ranges. And so it becomes more challenging not only for us to hear, but also the equipment we're using is not transmitting all of those, loyally. They're not, and Paula was alluding to that in her discussion about Sirius Radio, where she looked at perceptual audio coding in particular.
yeah, it's so cool. I would have never thought that like some of the stuff you guys use as examples, like you just never think that that's what your job is, So they enjoyed that part of it when we got to hear about, what you guys are actually doing.
Thank you. It seems a lot more simple when you have to summarize it than it truly is. And so thank you for that opportunity to.
Of course.
That's
Yeah,
good.
so we're my kids will start joining now. Like they told you guys a little early.
Right. And you let us know when you think we should begin speaking, okay?
Yep, I'll let you know. I'm just gonna greet them as they come in, and I'll get it to where you guys are on the board again because that was nice.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I don't know, ask to unmute. I've asked to unmute a couple times, but I'm not sure if that's going to be helpful. If I have to do that. Do I have to do that? Ask to unmute.
Monica Perry to the main office. Monica Perry. Also to the main office, Haley Tenero, Nate Dixon, Abigail Cole to the main office. And Jordan Clark to the main office.
Hello. Yep, I'm on the Zoom with them right now. Just gonna get it situated to where we're up on the board.
And another thing, Dr. Cerruti, another thing we noticed is when the pandemic began, people began wearing masks and being behind plastic barriers. And so again, it was difficult for people to hear and understand speech.
Yeah.
We don't realize we're relying on looking at facial gestures as much as we do. And so being able to
definitely believe that.
So that really makes a difference in the waiting room. How do I get wait? I hope admit. Yeah, there we go. It's a continually learning experience for people of my era.
Hi, Hannah.
And I now in my home, I notice I hear the train more readily than I hear simple things around my home, like the announcements on my mobile phone. because they're at a different frequency. The low frequencies of the train are easier for me to hear as I get older. Then, yeah, yeah.
So join with computer audio.
Recording in progress.
I apologize. There must be some feedback going on here somewhere. Is everything okay now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So when you are engaged in that wider area of research, you begin to become aware of that, and then just helping others to understand it is a great deal of what we do with the IEEE in this site, especially the site group, is to help people understand why they might think about designing products differently, because we want to accommodate all these variabilities in people's experiences and in their needs, you know.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. All right, so we have another minute or so.
Sure.
Everyone will be here soon. Once everyone gets here, I'll let you know when
Thank
we're ready.
Thank you.
Hello. And congrats on
Oh, thank you.
most likely to succeed.
I'd like to announce the winners of the holiday board decorating contest. In third place, we have the safety officer. In second place,
That's you.
in room W06, Mrs. Morado. And in first place, we have. So sorry about that. First place, we have from E29, Mrs. Rodriguez. They would also like to give an honorable mention to Dr. Press in E06. Congratulations and thanks for participating. Happy holidays.
She's not so happy. She's always like so scared.
Why would you write about that? What would you learn from it?
What's up, guys? Good morning. So we have, I know my voice is doing that for now, but once I mute me, it will be fine. Let me mute myself real quick. All right, so everyone's here. If I actually, hold on one second, just because I'm echoing. All right, guys, we're ready whenever you are, and thanks again for taking the time out. This is our AP research class, so they're all seniors, and they've been looking forward to this.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this kind invitation, for having us here today. We are thrilled to be here. We're very excited to have an opportunity to talk with you about things that we find exciting, you know, the things that we find to be useful in life, our area of oh dear, I'm letting people in too, so I apologize for the.
Sorry, the kids are all just getting in now.
Oh, good. Okay. Everyone's in?
Their lunch, and they have to grab lunch. And then also, they threw me a little surprise party because I won Teacher of the Year. So
How exciting. How exciting. I love parties. Parties are good.
brownies.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank you again for inviting us. And I have Dr. Paula Mueller here, and we may have Dr. Martha Niselatharai joining us soon. She's in the UK, in Scotland. She may be signing on. You may see her if she is able to join us. I'm actually on another device with her right now, so hopefully she can join us. She's another one of the researchers on this project. And you might run into the work of other members when you review these videos later. But we're most interested at this moment in sharing with you our point of view and a wider point of view into health and medical device literacy for everyone. And we're from the IEEE, which is a nonprofit group of engineers, a membership group. And we do all manner of things with this membership group, all topics, not just medicine and not just engineering and medicine. So don't let that stop you from investigating the IEEE. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mueller right now. She's going to begin the early part of the presentation.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Please excuse me if you hear a little bit of noise in the background. They are doing some repairs in my house as we speak, so my apologies in advance. As Catherine was describing, we are all members of IEEE, which is the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and in particularly, we belong to this SITE group, which is the Special Interest Group for Humanitarian Technology. IEEE is a non-for-profit professional organization, and it has its roots back to 1884, when the electricity began to become a major influence on society. And I want to encourage you, all of you, to follow technology and like Keith was saying, is not only for medicine, but for all what we do, some way or another is related to technology. And the roots of IEEE are very much tied to New Jersey, with all the development that happened with the transistor, telecommunications, and even most recently to artificial intelligence and machine learning. And everything is very close from us, from your backyard in Homedale, Red Bank, uh, all New Jersey. So New Jersey, particularly, there is one huge building in Homedale, which it was Bell Labs. Now it was taken and it had the name Bellworks, but that building was built to accommodate 6,000 engineers, scientists that through many years developed and put forward all the developments that happen in technology in our society for the last 200 years. I mean, over 100 years. So, as I mentioned, many disciplines of our group, electrical engineer, biomedical engineer, human factors, machine learning, and others. Particularly, I am a biomedical engineer, and the purpose of my career has been to use technology to help others along the way. Please, the next one slide.
My slides are having a moment.
Okay,
Sorry.
so today we're going to talk about the introduction, a discussion of medical devices, the interpretation of their measurement. We want to hear from you about the future, if you have any question, and at the end you will have an assignment of data collection that Keith shared with you, that we want you to do probably offline.
Sorry.
So
There's something weird going on here.
That's very much okay. What I wanted to summarize, thank you so very much, all of you. We received 79 responses to our survey, and thank you very much for the extensive message. I mean, the responses were outstanding. Thank you so very much for sharing all that information with us. So as I mentioned, all of you are from the 79 responses, all of you are familiar with some medical device. Some of you mentioned stethoscope, blood pressure, glucose meter, pulse oximeter, thermometer. Some of you mentioned x-rays, magnetoresonant images, MRI, smart scale, insulin pump, and defibrillator. Many of you are aware of medical conditions because of your own experience or the one from someone close to you. In some cases, medical devices are used to monitor or treat the condition. Language, many of you speak or have relatives that speak other languages, and it's quite interesting the variety of languages that all of you speak. Some of them were completely new to me and to kids, so we had to do a Google search to find out which part of the world was speaking that language. The vast majority of you responded yes when asked if it will be helpful that health information is provided in multiple languages. For sure, COVID had affected the health of many directly as a consequence of the infection, but also as a treatment of other conditions. COVID brought challenges that you described it very well, and in some cases it added difficulty to follow the treatment, and it showed the need to improve the healthcare system. Um, in this presentation, what we want to emphasize is how you design solutions. And the idea is, particularly for healthcare, is not a solution that involves a snapshot of a medical condition at a particular point, but it includes a series of aspects. And that's when we wanted to introduce you to the concept of social determinants of health. It's important, as you will have in your journals that keep share with you, the need of inclusion and diversity for many aspects. Just to mention, we need to incorporate everyone in the clinical trials. We have to design solutions for everyone. We have differences on skin tone, differences of as we age, we have physiological and behavioral and mental differences. So we have also the issues of hearing loss or visual loss or dexterity. So inclusion is very, and diversity are very important. And in terms of the social determinants of health, just let
Oh,
me mention uh, it involved economic stability, educational access and quality, healthcare access and quality, neighborhood and built environment, and social and community context. And all of that play a role in the health outcomes of the people. So please, Kim, now
oh
to
no. Oh no. Let me go back. I apologize. Okay, there we go.
so what are the challenges that we face in order to design a solution? And one of them, and that's where we put those questions in the survey because we wanted to stimulate the conversation and the discussion, is the lack of health literacy. And this had a direct impact in the health outcomes. And here are just some statistics for you to understand the magnitude of the situation. Around 24 million Americans have some limited English proficiency. Uh, 26 million have trouble with vision, 38 million have trouble with hearing, and 34 million have low English literacy skills. And now we have a country that is highly diverse. Based on the census from 2020, the index of diversity in the US is 61.1%. Just for you to know the relationship, 100% means full diversity. So we're very high, being 61.1%. And here some statistic for the Latinos, but these apply also to other ethnic groups. And they 6 in 10 run into a language and cultural barriers, which is related to their healthcare. And more so, in neighborhoods where little English is spoken, there is a higher risk of poor health and early death. So all of this is for you to consider that inform and empowering the patient, the family, the caregivers. It's very important, and that's what our project of health literacy started, because it's important that um, everyone is informed properly. So what are the opportunities to design a person-centered care? And with that, we want to incorporate a transparent design for well-being. transform the COVID-19 impact in an opportunity to advance technology for humanity. One aspect of our project is health and medical device literacy, culturally and linguistically appropriate system class design for dignity and identity, increase diversity and representation, reduce bias in research, literature and project, and increase the diversity and representation in technologies and artificial intelligence and machine learning. So with that, I will let
Thank you so much,
Dr.
Dr. Mueller. What I was thinking about would be a nice place to begin, or at least something, a thought to begin this discussion, is the notion of homeostasis, which is the system stability stasis, which is for every kind of system, but it's important for our biological system to have a level of stability. And how do we recognize when stability has been perturbed or disrupted? We often use some kind of an instrument to do an objective measure, but that objective measure may not give us all the information we need about the system or about what's perturbing the system or disrupting the system. It's just a clue, one of the clues in the whole picture about homeostasis. And some of the devices that we might be familiar with, the more simple devices that we've seen, include the body temperature, a thermometer, for example, or a glucose level meter, which gives us some measure of a byproduct of some function going on in our body that could be represented by the level of glucose in our blood. And then we may be concerned about that because at some point we may be exposed to bacteria or virus. And so we're interested in understanding how that might affect these various measures of our body and what is our body trying to do to fight this infection. And a blood pressure cuff might be useful to identify how our autonomic nervous system or our central nervous system is responding to environmental influences or to health influences. And that can be measured somewhat using a blood pressure cuff. Of course, like any of these other devices we've mentioned previously, they may or may not be giving us the whole picture. They just give us part of the picture. Also, we have to be concerned about how we're managing our fluid level in our body, things that affect the way our cellular systems function, concentration of ions in our body. So we want to be concerned about things like whether or not we have adequate hydration, whether we have good and clean water sources, whether that water is providing all the salubrious minerals that we need in order for our life to return to homeostasis and conduct all the processes we need to. We might be concerned about measuring our respiration or the quality of that respiration, not just the number of times per minute we're breathing, but also whether or not that breathing is effective. And also we're concerned about removal of the wastes from our body. So there are other measures that can be helpful in determining those issues. So what we would like to focus our current project on is to provide information that will help people understand health and medical device literacy from the point of view of each of these individual devices and how they fit into that bigger scheme of what is your health like, how does it relate to an individual. The first device being the thermometer, another device being the pulse ox, the smart scale, and the blood pressure cuff, as well as the glucose meter that we discussed momentarily a few moments ago. What we notice is that on each of these devices, there's a barcode of some kind of a symbolic representation of this device, which corresponds to an open access database called the GUDID. This is a global standard. And we can take that information from a medical device and we can look it up into this online database. And now our idea is to design a series of complementary materials that would help people within their everyday life so that they can manage their healthcare or the healthcare of their loved ones. And not only that, but that they can also use that information when conducting let's say, telehealth visit with their medical practitioner, and that we can create a system that will support this kind of life going forward. Right now, we rely mostly on going to a doctor, but during the pandemic, we became aware of the fact many people were unable to access their doctor. Even in your surveys, you mentioned that there might have been some difficulty where you couldn't go in with your family member, or you didn't necessarily go in. And in some cases, that was perceived as a good thing. I believe it's a good thing. I think being able to use telemedicine instead of having to go to the doctor, where you might be exposed to even more, somebody has a different thing than you have, and you'd be exposed to that. I think it's an advantage to be able to do the telehealth, but we need some better support infrastructure to help people manage their healthcare themselves, so they know more about it, so they understand how these little devices fit into the bigger picture. So interpreting these results is really the thing we're trying to get at in our project. How do we interpret the results so that people understand, oh my goodness, what's going on? Okay, so let me just give you this eye chart of a slide, which you have a number of support documentation to help you with. But thinking about just the thermometer as the tip of the iceberg into a large body of knowledge about the homeostasis of a person, the disease state of the person, et cetera. And what we'll notice is that in this normal body temperature systematic review is that there really isn't a single normal body temperature. From a number of studies over a number of years, from the 1930s until very close to the present, what people notice is that as folks age, they fail to have a normal, what we would consider to be a normal body temperature. And not only that, but they fail to develop a fever when they're ill, the way you might if you're healthy and younger. People with a compromised immune system may also have the same problem. So how do you deal with using a thermometer as your only measurement to give you insight into whether or not a person's sick? Well, I would just like to leave with you this thought that if you are running a fever, you can rule in the fact you have a fever. But if you're not running a fever, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a health issue. You have to look at the whole picture, other symptoms, whether you've been exposed to something, whether you know you have a pre-existing condition. And so not only that, but the environmental influences affect our body and our body's ability to respond to its environment, to maintain that homeostasis. And you'll notice on the left side of this chart, you have some ambient temperatures in different cities around the globe. And what you'll notice is that when the temperature drops, even a moderate amount of cold will increase the death rate. People have a great deal of difficulty accommodating to even moderate changes, especially in cold. In the warm temperatures, those changes and the effect on health happens more quickly because you become dehydrated. And there's a cascade of effects that happens when you become dehydrated. It happens in a shorter period of time, 3 to 4 days. In the cold weather, it can be as long as 20 to 21 days when you can clearly see the effect of a moderate change in cold. It starts a cascade of effects that affects a number of your body systems, which I can provide you with more information about that. It's a big discussion though. And you can see where it can lead you into a lifetime of investigation, not just about the body, but also, as I mentioned before, about environmental things. And as Dr. Mueller mentioned, social determinants of health. Do you have enough heat in your home? Do you understand what heat can do to your system? Is the person who's exposed to the cold able to articulate that they're cold? These things are all very important to consider. And another way to look at that information is to classify it based on how it affects young children, how the people in old age, people who might have dementia who can't articulate something to you, can't help you with their symptoms or their experiences, or they may not even understand it because they've become accustomed to turning the thermometer down or the thermostat down in their house to save money. They may not realize how they're being affected by the cold weather over time. Alcohol and drugs can also impair your physiology as well as your ability to make good decisions. So it may suppress your respiration. It may enhance your reaction to medications you're taking. And being immersed in water, for example, in a bathtub, can affect your entire body's ability to accommodate the environmental temperature. It changes your core temperature. It exposes you to extreme risk if your core body temperature drops. What I can show you in the top pink image in the middle is a bath thermometer that you can put in a bathtub. So if you're bathing a person who is not able to tell you the water is too hot or too cold, like an infant or an older person, you can monitor the temperature of the water, for example, in the bath, or you can use a more sophisticated household thermometer to give you information. And the Potter articles, which we've included in our package for you, that's a chart on the right-hand side in the lower image here, the lower right-hand side of this image, talks about how when people are in the military and they wear certain clothing, they're in certain environments doing certain work, how does the environment, the activity, the status of the individual interact? And at the bottom, you see a chart of what you can predict will happen if a person is exposed to certain temperatures, certain work activity, and so forth. So in order to protect workers in their field, we have an entire line of work that's being done to understand how the body is responding to that environment. And that's a very big area of research. One thing we wanted to draw your attention to is this pulse oximetry device, the thing you put on your finger that tells you how much oxygen you may be receiving. This is being used a lot more during COVID, but it may not be the best device. And the reason why we point this out is because even the FDA and many, many researchers during COVID have noticed that in this chart in the center, you can see in the gray spaces, the real reading using blood gases of what the oxygen level is in a person's body. And it's, as you can see, dropping below the gray area many, many times, whereas with the pulse ox device, what you see in the whiskers, the bar and whiskers chart, you see those measures appear to be in the normal range for white patients and also for Black patients. But in reality, those instruments are not adequate to measure the pulse ox, especially in people who have dark skin, because the device is not calibrated for dark skin. And in conclusion, even in this little very brief article, which is an alarming article, they point out that you must consider all factors before you make a decision, not just the reading of that one device, because that device is not necessarily the best device for measuring this particular and very important aspect of health. So what are we trying to do about that? What we're trying to do is we're trying to improve levels of standards and understanding, which is why we're calling this transparent design for well-being. We're trying to provide a means to recognize what good objective measures are that can be integrated into this field and help people to build better devices, understand better methods, and do a more inclusive system to provide healthcare for everybody. This is an example of a study where people looked at race or skin color, but it was for a particular application for things having to do with prosthetics and in a particular geography. So if you notice that the races that were included and the data that's in the sample is not very wide, it may not apply in other cities, other towns, other applications. And so when you consider the research you're doing or the research you're looking at, you might not choose a certain set of research data for your application because it may not apply specifically to what you're doing. And so part of the work that Dr. Mueller and others on our team are concerned about is making sure that data is curated adequately so that artificial intelligence and machine learning systems, which are now going to be medical devices that are software-based, that we help to design and regulate and keep quality assurance on products that are software-based, that have data in them, so that the data is curated, so that the data is checked over time to make sure it's performing the way we would like it to perform, to do a very, very good job. So that's why we're thinking more about inclusive design in the future. And let's see, we have a Q&A session. We would like to ask you if you have any questions at this time.
So I'm going to ask the question that we asked earlier because I thought it, my first period class really liked it. And
Uh-huh.
that is just talking about some of the designs or products that you guys individually have worked on in your career so far.
Dr. Mueller, could you please begin this discussion?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. Can you hear me properly? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. In my career, I started as a biomedical engineer because I wanted to incorporate engineering principles to address healthcare issues. And one of my work, my research at the very beginning was at the very beginnings of the introduction of functional magnetoresonant images. And at that point, I was studying what portion of the brain works when you are doing eye movements, but also what portion of the brain are modified when you have patients with Parkinson's disease. And at that time, we were also exploring the effect of electrostimulation in the brain to treat Parkinson's disease. So that was one of the works that I did. But lately, as an engineer, I work in the basically the algorithms to modify the audio and basically the conversion from an analog, so what we hear, into digital, and then how we can compress it with what is called perceptual audio coding, in order that all the compression, all the modification that we do in the data is not perceived by humans. So we analyze, we study what is the spectrum of frequencies that the audio system can perceive. Our audio system is different from the audio system of a dog, for example. So using that knowledge, we were able to basically modify the signal in order that it can be transmitted for over the satellite when I was working for Sirius XM satellite radio. And lately, I started my own company where I designed a product for aging adults and persons with disability. Think about your grandmother or your grandparents that didn't grow up with technology. So my product aims to bridge that gap where the aging adult receive a large screen, standalone touch screen, where they can place in their home without the need of login or anything, and just the family members in their smartphone install an app, and that's how I built a bridge to cover the technology gap between those two generations. So the families just press a button and start and show up on the screen of this aging adult, and they start talking and checking on how your loved one that is aging in place is doing. So those are examples of what I have done in my career, just trying to build solutions for different problems. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to, I didn't even know what to say earlier, so I'm glad you gave me a few moments to think about it. But one of the things that I'm excited about that I did a while ago was to look at heart rate and respiration. And you may have understood that ultrasound is frequently used in hospitals. I think many people mention that in their results in the survey, but it involves having a gel and a transducer that has to come in contact with your body. So I invented, along with some other colleagues at work, a method of, instead of using ultrasound, using microwave Doppler to be able to more quickly, more easily, and then more in a less constrained way to look at the heartbeat and the respiration and any other signal inside of the body. So we envisioned that it would be very useful for example, one of our clients at the time was auto manufacturers and ambulances, And what they're interested in is understanding if a person's in an auto accident, what may have happened to them at the time of the accident, because that can help predict what the deep body injuries might be. And to do triage even before they bring the ambulance to the scene, they can get a very good sense of what kind of internal injuries you may have. They also get an idea from the signal whether you're an adult or a child, so what kind of equipment they have to bring to the scene, and to predict where they will be wishing to take you afterward. You know, that's kind of a very big view of this. And then you have to try to take that idea and like bring it into a real product. So what wound up happening at that time, which was quite some time ago, was people needed this type of technology in airports to screen people as they're going through security to find out if they seem like their vital signs are not matching their image. You know, in other words, are they carrying a bomb in their handbag? These are the kinds of applications that are very useful. But I find that the medical applications are very interesting to me, as well as any of the security applications. And then later on, I got involved with functional brain imaging and virtual reality and robot rehabilitation, which we can talk about at some, length on other occasions. But I did include a chapter that I prepared with some colleagues that talks more about the virtual reality exercise rehabilitation for people who've had stroke, and using the robots to assist in that rehabilitation, as well as looking at how people who have had a brain injury like a stroke, how their physiology responds to the exercise, that may be more subtle and not well appreciated earlier, because most of our research is conducted on healthy people. So we were lucky, we were able to, for a different experiment, we were able to look at healthy subjects and also at people who had a brain injury like a stroke, who were doing exercising in a particularly stressful kind of task. And we were able to see how much more stress the people with the brain injury were experiencing and how it was affecting their physiology while exercising. You wouldn't ordinarily be able to get permission to do a study like that. But what happened was there was already permission to do a randomized control study involving healthy and patient subjects for a different reason. And once we got the data, we were able to analyze it, and we were able to see, to get some insight into how extreme the issues are for people who have brain injury. Any other questions?
Hello, Dr. August.
Hello.
I'm Jackie Anderson.
Hi,
in the
Jackie.
Ames ASR program. And I was just wondering, how did you gain a passion for your field, and how did you really get interested in it? Because you talk so eloquently about it.
You're too kind. I fell into it. I can't even tell you how it began. I think it began when I was a small child and went to the World's Fair with my dad, who was an engineer. And, I'm always trying to go back to the beginning. And so helping people to get that insight is what I spend most of my time doing right now. Some of it came about just because of the way I grew up. And then I had to struggle to get into this field because my dad, by the time, even though he was so informed, by the time it was time for me to go to college, he said, "What? You think you can go to college?" And then it took many years for me to get out into college on my own, get through the school and all that. So I didn't have a traditional way into engineering, but I learned about Bell Labs by being a headhunter. And I learned about what people were doing there. And I said, "Oh, I'd really love to do that." And somehow I fell into an opportunity that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Working in that organization, I was asked to work in new service concept systems engineering. Every project was different. Every technology was different. And I got a very broad and also very deep exposure to a number of areas, businesses, industries, and government agencies, and so many opportunities that I feel so blessed that I had that opportunity. And that's one of the reasons why I'm inspired to share it, because I know it's rare. I know it's not, an easy thing to do. And so thank you for asking that question.
So we have one more question.
Sure.
One of my students was asking, so you guys are talking about how you're thinking of creating new designs. Like, for example, you talked about the ultrasound, and then, you know, what your committee and, you know, other staff members came up with. Do you think that some of the stuff you guys are going to come up with is going to replace old technology or kind of be more supplemental?
It's a very good question. In the regulatory industry, it's difficult to replace old technology because things that existed before FDA started regulating technology are considered to be grandfathered in. And so those are the things that you can find everywhere, the blood pressure cuff, the thermometer, the glucose meter, and all that. We know that newer methods are better. For example, Barrett Kamen, who does the robotics competitions, Dean Kamen, he knows that his arm is a better arm than the mechanical arm, but we can't, that those things don't get accepted by FDA. And so then they're not medical devices. They're not necessarily reimbursed by insurance. And so it's a difficult thing to introduce a new technology and have it align with the regulatory aspects of what has to happen in order for people to be able to go and buy it and get it covered by insurance. So there will be new technologies and techniques in software that are easier to implement in the cloud and so forth, that will help physicians and people to manage their health. But until we have a really good way to introduce brand new revolutionary technology that replaces gold standard technology, we'll be living with both in our environment. So thank you for that question. It's quite a thing.
Yeah, that was right from one of our students, so she's happy that it was a good question.
Yes. Yeah, and also getting back to the, like, how did we decide to do this when we grow up? We're going to hopefully run a series of classes on that, on being an inventor, on what does it mean, how does it fit in? And in terms of IEEE and SITE, it allows professional organizations allow you to think about these things even outside the constraints of your regular job. You can think about new things, learn from your peers, find mentors, and do this endeavor for your entire life, even when you're home raising a family, or if taking care of elders is your thing, or if you've you know, like I have gotten to a certain age where you're not working every day at a real job, you still are engaged in the discussion and in this field. So thank you very much for both of those questions. Yes?
Yes.
Anything
No,
else?
For us, our bell is going to ring any minute, but
Okay.
You know, from us, we just want to say thank you again.
Oh, thank you. And you guys have your assignment. You have measurements to make, and
Yeah.
you're going to send that stuff to us, and we're going to look at it from the points of view of the instruments and the holistic approach that with the homeostasis that we talked about.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that on our end. Thank you again.
Excellent.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I have one question from a student.
Yes.
All right, so they said that if thermometers aren't so accurate in being able to tell if a person is sick, what is the most accurate tool for that?
That is a open question. This is why it's such an important thing to have health and medical device literacy, is because, well, you know, people talk about knowing your body, and they talk about understanding your background, your personal health history. All of these things are so important, and it's a never-ending thing in our lives to understand that. That's why literacy is so important. Thank you for that question. Dr. Mueller, do you have another thing to add to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to emphasize what you just said in terms of the being educated, and health literacy is so important because you have to be aware of the conditions when the right measurements apply, and also have a design that is inclusive. I mean, we were all learn about the effect of the diversity of the skin tone for the pulsometers. So we have to have an inclusive design and health, and the people have to be empowered with knowledge.
Yes, even the medical practitioners are often unable to answer questions like this because they don't encounter certain pre-existing conditions all the time. They don't encounter certain racial or cultural experiences all the time. And so sometimes they're presented with a new experience. Even during COVID, people were called into working in pulmonary areas or infectious diseases areas that they have never worked in before. So even professionals can sometimes be in a situation where they don't understand why this instrument isn't the right one to use. So these are very good things to be thinking about.
Have a great day.
You too. I'll see you guys later. Thank you again.
Ciao. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. The bell's gonna ring, so I'm gonna hop on the next Zoom and hop off this, okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.